You don't think, I mean, because you have seen the protest, I mean, at the NHIS, and, you know, all of this, should we say, will be adding to the perception, don't you think? No. I mean, you talked about how the media is writing, you know, the agencies will come up with this rating. Look at what the media say, look at what the people say. Isn't it more about how Nigerians feel? I mean, just take a look at what's been happening in the last couple of days. Snakes swallowing money in somebody's house in a vote, you know, at an agency of government. In another instance, we heard from the senators that monkeys raided somewhere, you know, and all of this, even though it might sound funny and sometimes be made trivial, but all of this will continue to add to the perception of the more things change, the more they remain the same.
No, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. We know in any country, there's no country that does not have incidents of criminality amongst its public officers. It's all over the world. It's all over the world.
The question is how it's being tackled. How is it being taken? Do we have a situation where even on the roads, I mean, where you used to have policemen, remember in the early days, people would talk about the body language of the president. But now we have a situation where it's back to normal. The body language hasn't done anything.
I think Nigerians are getting it a little bit or pushing it too far and stopping. I know the buck stops on the president's table, but it's a fight for all. It's a fight for all Nigerians. You know, we have criminals all over. They cut across all the segments of the country. We have criminals.
Don't you think the government needs to do more to address the perception that Nigerians feel?
I will think the government is doing the much they could do at the moment.
They can't do any better?
No, they are doing the much they could do at the moment based on the existing institutions. And I can see the government is trying to straighten these institutions. And I think over time, we will begin to see good results. We just need to work with the government. It is these press condemnations overboard and day in, day talking
press
about
condemnation overboard?
Yes.
I beg to differ.
No, honestly,
I'm just wondering, let us, you know, come to Austin. Austin, do you agree that the press has been overboard with some of the information that it has brought to light?
The press also has its own perceptions. But beyond that, let me just state two clear points before I answer that. First of all, one thing that is not on dispute right now is that corruption in Nigeria still persists. I think we're not arguing about that right now. Secondly, and the second point I want to make is that there's not been a comprehensive and holistic approach in tackling the incidences of corruption in the country. I think that also is not in dispute, flowing from what we see. So if we are to make progress genuinely, I think it is for us to first of all begin to agree and accept that this is an issue for us to all be on board in addressing. When last year the ease of doing business reports came out and it gave Nigeria some appreciable ranking in terms of the global ranking, we all embraced it. We all said that yes, that the government is doing fairly. I mean, the government was one of the first responders to that ease of doing business reports. So why now, if the Transparency International, Amnesty International also released their annual report yesterday, giving some very not too fantastic reports to the government. So because globally people are watching, the incidences about the snakes, incidences about the monkeys, the global community is watching us, and we are gradually becoming a laughingstock and a ridicule to the global community. All this informs the perception.
Even though, in fairness to JAM, they were the ones who came up with that, you know, they brought it up to show how it was that they were tackling corruption within their system and trying to ensure that incidences like this are brought to the barest minimum. It would seem that a lot of Nigerians still interpreted that that was what was going on in JAM.
Mark, but that explanation will not come out. The first information that goes out in the media is that snakes swallowed $36 million dollars on naira. You understand? That's the first information. That at the instance that JAM will come out to give a clarification, you may not necessarily hear it. I mean, it's your space, so you as an individual may hear it, but the average person on the street out there, the cab driver, the lady selling in the market, they may not get that information.
So do you think that, sorry, Ajuri, do you think that then that fault, when you rate it based on perception, not by what governments are actually doing, do you think that that would be a fair rating?
In terms of government's response?
Yes, especially when you look at, how perceptions can be affected by stories like this. Taking the story, for instance.
The bottom line still remains that when there is an improved and holistic approach in addressing such cases, such incidences, they wouldn't in the first instance emanate into public space. So our point remains that government needs to do more. We must not just dismiss this report or begin to make rebuttals and say no, the index is not a fair representation of how government has fared.
Mr. Efere, I want to come in here because you're a member, of course, of the National Prosecution Council, and I really want to ask you, when we talk about this perception issue, your stance is pretty straightforward. You're saying that, look, this government is doing the best it can in the anti-corruption war with the existing institutions that are available. Now, we have heard publicly in the last few days from the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, and he publicly admitted that there is corruption in this government. He just said that the corruption in this government is less than the corruption in the last government, but he publicly admitted such. Now I want to ask you, as a member of this prosecution council, how many cases has your council been able to bring to a conclusion?
Well, if you listen to me carefully, I have not minced words in saying that corruption does exist in Nigeria. Likewise, I would say that corruption...
But not in Nigeria, in this government, is what he said.
Wait, hang on. I've said Nigeria, not government itself. I say public sector, private sector, and all the likes. Even in churches, religious organizations. We do have corruption. There's no country in the world, whole wide world, that does not have corruption, incidents of corruption in that country. Even the advanced countries, they do have that. Corruption is everywhere. But what the government is trying to do is, when they came in, they noticed that one of the things that had brought Nigeria and killed most of the institutions in Nigeria was corruption. And they made it point clear to all Nigerians that we are willing and ready to fight corruption. And remember, Nigerians have lived under this yoke of corruption, and it has become a part of the life of Nigerians. And a lot of Nigerians, it might shock you to know that a lot of Nigerians do enjoy corruption. Like I was saying, it's only the other flip side of it. If a Nigerian is in office or public office, he does not say anything bad about corruption. When you take him out of it, he shouts hell about corruption.
You already say that government is doing what they can about fighting it, right?
Yes, they are doing.
So it means that there's nothing more they can do.
No, I'm saying they are doing and they should do more. I do agree. Much more has to be done. They have to straighten the institutions to fight this corruption. They have to do even more.
Well, gentlemen, it will be a fine place to live it. We have to thank you most kindly for coming on Sunrise Daily. Mr. Austin Erame is Program Officer, Democratic Governance at CISLAC. Thank you for coming on Sunrise. And we also have Mr. Eric Efere, who is the member, National Prosecution Coordinating Committee. Welcome, and thank you so much for coming